Hi guys, I hope all of you are doing well. So I welcome you all to yet another video in this AWS Data Engineering Certification course, and in this particular video we are going to talk about the reasons, availability zones and local zones with respect to the RDS. Then we will talk about the supported features in Amazon RDS, and then we will be talking about the DB instance billing in the RDS. So this particular video is going to be a bit long video as we will be covering multiple concepts in one single video. And then in the next video, we will start with our first practical of RDS launching, right? We will see how we will be able to launch our RDS instance, how we will be choosing our database engines and so on. Also, we will be start writing our first SQL queries on the RDS. So with that said, let's get started with this video and let's get straight into the system. So what I will do is, before going to our dashboard, I will try to first of all open the documentation itself. So I hope all of you are aware about that, where we will find this documentation. If not, what you guys can do is, you can just either click on this particular link. So if you are if you have opened your console, right, your console management, and if you are in your RDS service, in that particular case you can just click on this getting started with RDS and you will be redirected to this particular documentation, where either you can choose the PDF form if you want to learn about RDS in a form of a PDF, or maybe you can, if you want to download that particular soft copy, so you can download it. Else, this is, I would say, the better version, or I would say my preferable version to read the documentation. So let's start and let's begin with understanding the reasons, availability zones and the local zones, and how these will affect the different RDS services, and uh, maybe they can also play some part on the database engine also. So Amazon cloud computing resources are hosted in multiple locations worldwide, right? So we are already aware about this fact that there are multiple reasons in which AWS, you can say AWS data centers are hosted, and inside one single region there are at least three availability zones that are available, right? As well as there are also some local zones that are available, so that uh, the data centers, or you can say um, the servers, can be as near as possible to the users that are there for any XYZ application, right? So for that reason, AWS has also deployed some local zones. So it is hosted on multiple regions worldwide. These locations are composed of AWS regions, availability zones, and local zones. Each AWS region is a separate geographic area, right? So just like we have a region of USA, then we have a region in our South American continent, then we have in African continent, European continent, then we have in Middle East, then we have in our South, in Asia Pacific region, right? Then we have in our uh, Australia and New Zealand region, right? So these are the major regions that are available, and within these regions there are different availability zones that are available, and also some local zones are available in these regions. So each AWS region is a separate geographic area, right? Each AWS region has multiple isolated locations called as availability zones. So these things we have already discussed in a very detailed way, right? So in our previous videos. So if you have not watched those videos, so I would highly recommend you guys to watch those videos, so that you guys can get a good understanding about these concepts of regions, availability zones, local zones, bandwidth zones, and etc. Note, for information about finding availability zones on the AWS region, you can go onto this link in the Amazon EC2 documentation. So by using local zones, you can place resources such as compute and storage in multiple locations closer to your user, right? So if we are having users in multiple zones, or you can say in a worldwide kind of, we are having an application which is used by the worldwide users. So what we will be doing is that we will not be keeping a central location. Maybe let's suppose we will not only keep a region as our US East 1, that we are serving all the traffic from US East 1 itself. Why? Because in that particular case, the latency will become very, very high, right? So what we will try to do is uh, we will try to create our infrastructure in such a way that the compute means our app server, right, and the databases can be as close to the users as possible. So Amazon RDS enables you to place resources such as DB instances and data in multiple locations. Resources are not replicated across AWS regions unless you do so specifically. Okay, so you need to understand this part, right? That the resources will not be replicated across the AWS region. So let's suppose you have launched an instance or a database instance in US region, and the other you have launched in the Asia Pacific region. So data within both of these regions will not get replicated, or they will not get, you can say, duplicated, right? They can, or they will only get duplicated or replicated only you have specifically mentioned that particular thing, that I want this cross region kind of replication for my application. In that particular case, you can do that particular thing also, and which is also recommended, right? It's also recommended that we do some kind of, so if I am having a worldwide application which is used all over the world, so it is recommended that we should replicate our data into multiple regions, so that for any reason, if one region goes down, the other region is available for us to serve as a backup. So Amazon operates state of the art, highly available data centers, right? Although rare, failures can occur that affect the availability of DB instances that are in the same location. If you host all your DB instances in one location, right, that is affected by such a failure, none of the DB instances will be available. That's exactly what we discussed right now, right? So let's suppose you have launched all your instance in the same region. Let's suppose this is US. Where is my Epic pen? Let me open it. Right. Let's suppose this is my US East 1 region, right? And for some reason, right, even 2 or 3 months ago, the US East 1 region was down, right? So this, if I have launched all my instances, DB instances, or if I am storing all my data in US East 1 region only, in that particular case, if this US East 1 region goes down, how I will be able to access my data that is present in my DB instance? It will not be accessible, right? This connection will not work at that point of time. So what I can do is I can maybe, right, replicate this particular DB instance, or I can just replicate the read instance in my Europe region, right? So in that particular case, what will happen is, let's suppose for any reason this US East 1 region is down, I will start switching my traffic or my read traffic to the Europe region, right? So this is a kind of fault tolerance that we can do, right? So this is what it has shown here, that this is the region, right? One region, or you can say in the hierarchy, region comes at the top. Then there are different availability zones that are present inside one region, and from this one region there is local zones that are that is there, right? So here in US also will also have some kind of local zones. So because US in itself is a very, very large country, right? In that particular case, it will have some kind of local zone, so that we can deploy our DB instance or our app instance there, so that it is closer to the group of users that are present in some kind of zone near that, right? So it is important to remember that each US region is completely independent. Any Amazon RDS activity you initiate, for example, creating a database instance or listing available database instances, runs only on your current AWS default region. Okay. So if you initiate anything, right? So let's suppose if I am initiating, for creating a new database, right? A new database instance, or maybe I'm listing the all my database instances. So it will not list all the database instances that are present for my AWS account, right? Here what I'm trying to say is, and let me do one thing. Let me also open my eraser. So eraser workspace. $200. Okay, and let me scroll down. So here what I'm trying to say is, if I talk about here, right? So this is my account. If I talk about this account ID, right? So this account ID is the top hierarchy, right? So account ID I can say, or my AWS user account I will say, right? Or I can say my AWS user account is at the top. Okay. Now from these AWS user accounts, I can have multiple regions. I can access multiple regions, right? How I can access it? So if I come back here, so you can see, right, there are different regions that are available, right? So there are currently 16 regions that are not enabled for this account. If I want, I can enable it. Else these are the regions that are available. So currently I am in US East one, which is the North Virginia one. If I come to Mumbai, so it will take a few seconds to reload, right? And now you can see it has reloaded itself to the Mumbai region. Now you can see we are in the Asia Pacific region, and uh, in Asia Pacific region specifically, we are in the Mumbai region, right? So inside this AWS account, we will have multiple regions, right? And inside this multiple regions, we can have different availability zones. AVAIL availability zones, right? Or so called as AZs. Okay. So we can have different availability zones, right? And we can also have multiple local zones. Cool. So this is the hierarchy. Now what here it is saying that it is important to remember that for each AWS region, which is completely independent, any RDS activity, if you initiate, for example, creating a database or listing the available database instances, will only run in the current default AWS region. What here it wants to say is, let's suppose with this particular account, right, there are multiple databases that are connected, right, or that are created in the same account itself. Okay, in the same account there are multiple databases that are created, but these databases are in separate region. Let's suppose this is in let's say US region, right? Okay, this is in US region, this is in Europe region. Okay, these databases are in Europe region, and these are in, let's suppose, Asia Pacific region. Cool. Now what will happen is, let's suppose from this user ID itself, that is currently I'm having this user account, right? If I'm trying to list the databases, so currently I'm in Asia Pacific region, right? And if I will run any command to list databases, right? If I'm running a command to list databases, it will only list currently this particular database. Okay. List databases. So it will only list the databases that are present in my current region, that is my Asia Pacific region, right? Now let's suppose if I switch it back to my US region, right? If I have switched it back to my US region, And now if I run this list databases thing or command, in that case, it will only display these two databases. In this case, it will only list these two databases, and it will not list the rest of the 6 databases that are present in the same account itself. So these all databases, they are present. If I talk about, so okay, the arrow, I want the rectangle, right? So these databases, they all are the part of the same account, right? But they will differ region wise, and this is what exactly it is trying to say in this particular line. Okay, so the default AWS region can be changed in the console or by setting AWS default region environment variable. So if you are using our CLI, AWS CLI, in that particular case, we can use this particular environment variable, or it can be overridden by using the hyphen parameter, hyphen region parameter with the AWS command line interface. For more information, you can see onto this particular link specifying the sections above environment variables and command line options. Now Amazon RDS supports special AWS regions called AWS government. So these are government clouds. These are designated to allow US government agencies and customers to move more sensitive workload into the cloud. AWS government cloud US region address the US government's specific regulatory and compliance requirement. For more information, you can go on to this link, but it's absolutely not useful for us. So we will not be wasting our time with that. So to create our work with an AWS RDS DB instance in a specific AWS region, use the corresponding regional service endpoint, right? Now talking about the AWS regions. So the each AWS region is designed to be isolated from the other AWS region. So we are very well aware about this fact that all the regions that are available on AWS are absolutely isolated. They don't have any kind of interconnectivity between them or any kind of relationship between them. This design achieves the greatest possible fault tolerance and stability. So why they are isolated? To achieve fault tolerance and stability, right? Same thing, right? If one region is not active for any region, we can switch to the other regions, and there will be a very, very high probability that the other region will be working. When you view your resources, you see only the resources that are tied to the AWS region that you specify. It is because AWS regions are isolated from each other and we don't automatically replicate resources across the AWS regions, right? Now comes the region availability. So the following table shows the AWS regions where Amazon RDS is currently available and the endpoint for each region. So if I talk about US East, right? So the region is US East 2. So US East is the Ohio one, right? Ohio or Ohio, whatever you want to say, right? So the endpoint is RDS dot this, right? RDS dot pips US this, and this. So these are the endpoints. What exactly this endpoint is, right? So currently we will not be talking about it, but moving forward, right? When we will be utilizing RDS with some kind of application server, in that particular case, we will get to know what the use of this particular endpoint. So for the protocol thing, every protocol will be, or every endpoint will basically work on this HTTPS protocol itself. Then we have US East region, right, which is the North Virginia one. So it is this, and again the endpoints, if you will notice closely, so the only thing that will change will be this particular region code, right? So if I talk about, so this is the region name and this is you can see this as region or region code. So only this thing will change. Rest of the things will remain as it is. So you can see here RDS dot US East 1, right? Amazon AWS.com. It was here in RDS US East 2.amazon.com. So you can see within these regions, and again you will see different regions will have different endpoints. So if I talk about US regions, all the US regions, right, it has 4 endpoints. Now if I talk about the Asia Pacific regions, so it has only 2 endpoints, right? This which one is not there? These 2 regions are not there in the Asia Pacific regions, right? And specifically, if I talk about Mumbai region or maybe Hyderabad region, so you can see there are these two endpoints, that is rds.apsouth1.amazon.com, right? And rds.apsouth1.apis.aws, right? And both of for all the protocols, I believe it will be HTTPS itself, and there will be no protocol as HTTP only, right? Now, if you don't want if you don't if you do not explicitly specify an endpoint, the US West Oregon endpoint is the default. Okay, when you work with a DB instance using the AWS CLI or API operations, make sure that you specify its regional endpoint. Then comes the availability zone. So when you create a DB instance, you can choose an availability zone or have Amazon RDS choose one for you randomly, right? So either we can specifically mention that, okay, this is the availability zone that I require, or you should be launching my instance in this particular availability zone itself, or we can also keep it blank. We don't mention any kind of availability zone, and AWS will automatically choose the availability zone randomly. So an availability zone is represented by an AWS region code followed by a letter identifier, right? For example, US East 1A. So 1A is one of the availability zones. So use this particular link, describe availability zones, Amazon EC2 commands as following to describe the availability zones within the specified region that are enabled in your account. So we will have to do what? AWS EC2 describe availability zones region hyphen region, and we have to give the region name, something like this. If we want to list all the availability zones, right, that are present in the US East 1 region, so we can do it using this. Else we can also go on to that globe chart, right, which we had seen earlier, and there also we will try we can get all the list of the availability zones that are present in the specific region. So you cannot choose the availability zones for the primary and secondary database instances in the multi availability zone database deployment. The Amazon RDS chooses them for you randomly. For more information about multi availability zone deployment, go on to this particular link, right? So we are again already aware about this fact that if we want to replicate our data, or if we want to create clone databases in multiple availability zones for the purpose of data replication, for the purpose of fault tolerance, in that particular case we will not be able to choose our primary and secondary database instances. Means we will not be able to choose our availability zones, and AWS will itself choose availability zones for your primary database instance as well as for your secondary database instance, so that it can automatically create that particular multi availability zone deployment for you. Okay, note, random selection of availability zones by RDS does not guarantee that even distribution of database instances among the availability zones within one single account or database subnet group. You can request a specific availability zone you create, or modify a single availability zone instance that you can use more specific database subnet groups for multi availability zone instances. For more information, you can go on to this particular link, right? So again, if we are randomly selecting our availability zones, that will not guarantee that our database instances or the request on our database instances are evenly distributed, right? In that particular case, right, in one single or even in the database subnet group, right, we can request a specific availability zone, right, when we create or modify a single availability zone instance. Okay, again, choosing the availability zone option is only available when we are going ahead with a single availability zone instance. If you are going ahead with a multi availability zone instance, in that particular case, AWS will itself choose its deployment availability zone. Then there are local zones. So local zones are an extension of the AWS regions that is geographically closer to your users. You can extend any VPC from the parent AWS region to local zones To do so, create a new subnet and assign it to the local AWS local zone. When you create a subnet in a local zone, your VPC is extended to that local zone. The subnet in that particular local zone operates the same as other subnets in your VPC. Okay. Now, what this particular thing means is, right, let's suppose, so we are aware about this fact that if we have deployed our application on US East 1 region, right, which is in North Virginia, right? So this US East 1 is in North Virginia, correct? You can see here also US East 1 is in North Virginia. Now I am having a user who is in US itself, but let me do one thing. Let me just do a Google search. Farthest, okay, farthest place in USA from North Virginia. Okay, so it's typically here, right? Let's suppose there is some user from, okay, in South Dakota, whatever, right? So this is farthest from, okay, this is farthest from any ocean. Okay, let's suppose, right? Let's suppose this South Dakota, okay, is where my user exists, right? Here is my user who is in South Dakota currently, right? And here, if I want to access, or if he's sending some kind of request to this server which is there in the North Virginia, here our latency time will be high. Okay, latency will be high. So what we can do is we can replicate some kind of local zone for this particular deployment. Okay, so this is a local zone of this particular region, local zone. Okay, and maybe it is there in some kind of location which is pretty closer to this South Dakota. And now what I will do is, if my user is present in this South Dakota region, right, if my user is present in this in South Dakota, what I will do is I will redirect the traffic to this local zone, and here our latency will be pretty low. Latency will be low. Okay, cool. Here the latency will be low with because of what? Because of this local zone distance that is there from this particular user who is present in the South Dakota region. Okay, so this is the use of these local zones. Now when you create a DB instance, you can choose a subnet in a local zone. So local zone can have their own connections to the internet or support direct connections. Thus, resources created in a local zone can serve local users with a very low latency communication. For more information, you can go on to this particular link. So a local zone is represented by an AWS region code followed by an identifier that indicates the location. For example, US East West 2, okay, LAX 1A, right? So this is the code, right? There will be some kind of this is one of the regions, or I would say one of the local regions that is there, LAX, not very sure what is it, what exactly it is, right? And this is the availability zone. 1A is the availability zone of this particular region, that is US West 2. Note, a local zone cannot be included in a multi availability zone deployment. So to use a local zone, enable the local zone in your Amazon EC2 console. For more information, you can go on to this link. Then create a subnet in the local zone. Then create a database subnet group in the local zone. And then create a database instance that uses the DB subnet group in the local zone. Okay. Important. Currently, the only AWS local zone where Amazon RDS is available is in Los Angeles in the US West, uh, uh, Oregon region. Okay. So this LAX was nothing but the Los Angeles. Okay. So currently RDS local zone deployment is only and only available for the Los Angeles local zone. Okay. Los Angeles local zone, and I'm not talking here about the region. Okay. And where exactly this Los Angeles local zone is? It is in the US West region. Okay. It is in US West region. Cool. So this was, I would say, things about what is regions, what is availability zones, and what are local zones in our RDS, right? And how we can deploy our RDS instances in multiple local zones. Cool. Now let's talk about the supported features that are there for our RDS. Okay, let's talk about the supported features in Amazon RDS by AWS region and the DB engine, right? So these features will be dependent in on two factors: that in which region are we initializing our instance, and which DB engine are we using. Okay, so support for Amazon RDS features and options varies across AWS regions and specific version of each DB engine, right? Again, the I would say the dependencies for the Amazon RDS features are Amazon regions, like, or you can say AWS regions, in which region that particular like we are deploying our RDS instance. Second will be which DB engine are we choosing, and the third, and I can say the most minute one, can also be the which version of our DB instance are we choosing, right? And depending on these three factors, the supported features will be there for our RDS instance. So to identify RDS or DB engine versions and version support and availability in a given AWS region, you can use the following section. So Amazon RDS features are different from engine native features or engine native features and options. For more information on engine native features and options, you can see this particular link. So supported regions and DB engines are, if I talk about table conversions, right? Feature quick references, blue-green deployments, cross-region automated backups, cross-region read replicas, database activity streams, dual stack mode, export snapshot to S3, IAM database authentication, Kerberos authentication, multi-availability zone DB clusters, performance insights, RDS custom, Amazon RDS proxy, secrets manager integration, zero ETL integration, and engine native features. So these are all the features, right? These are the list of features that are supported by RDS, right? And whether or not our instance will support these features will depend on the deployment region. So it will depend on deployment region. Secondly, it will depend on our database engine. And thirdly, it will also depend on the database engine version, right? That which version of the database engine am I using? Means, let's suppose if I'm using MySQL, right? If I'm using MySQL, so which version of MySQL am I using? Am I using, let's suppose, 8.0, or am I using, let's suppose, 7.5, or I'm using, let's suppose, 6.4, or which version of MySQL am I using, right? Now let's talk about the table conventions. So the table in the feature section use these patterns to specify version numbers and the level of availability. So version x.y, the specific version alone is available. alone version x.y and higher. So the specified version and all higher minor versions of its major version are supported. For example, if version 10.11 and higher means all the versions 10.11, 10.11.1 and 10.12 are available. So here feature quick reference. So the following quick reference table lists each feature and available RDS database engines. Region and specific version availability appears in the later feature section. So if I talk about the feature that is blue-green deployment, so for RDS for DB2 it's not available. For RDS for MariaDB, like if I'm choosing my database engine as DB2, so blue-green deployment feature will not be available, right? If I'm choosing my database engine as MariaDB, so blue-green deployment is available. MySQL blue-green deployment is available. RDS for Oracle, so if I'm choosing Oracle, blue-green deployment is not available. Uh, uh, PostgreSQL blue-green deployment is available, and SQL Server blue-green deployment is not available, right? Again, cross-region automated backups. So for all the database engines, it is available. Then cross-region read replicas. So apart from DB2, right, it's available for all the database engines. Database activity streams. So it's only and only available for Oracle DB and SQL Server, right? And for rest of the databases, database activity streams is not available. Dual stack mode. So for DB2 it's not available. For rest of the database engines it's available. Export snapshot to S3 for DB2, and for Oracle and SQL Server it's not available, right? And for rest of it it's available. Again, IAM database authentication, you can see the list, right? Kerberos authentication, you can see the list. Multi availability zone DB clusters, right? Again, it's only and only available for MySQL and PostgreSQL, right? Performance insights, apart from DB2, it's available for everything, every engine, right? RDS custom, so it's only and only available for this is Oracle, right? And this is MS SQL, right? Microsoft SQL Server. RDS proxy, right? For DB2 and for Oracle, it's not available. It's available for rest of it. And secrets manager integration, right? It's available for all the database engines that are present in DB2. Okay, cool. Now let's talk about the DB instance billing for RDS, which is, I would say, one of the most looked over topic, right? Means most of the people will not does not cover these billing topics and all, right? Because it's boring, I would say, right? It's not that interesting. But moving forward, right, if you have a bit of experience in AWS, anyone will be able to launch the instance, right? Anyone will be able to create a database or will be able to launch a RDS instance. But the difference will come where you have these minute details and you have these informations about which kind of instance should you launch, right? What kind of latency time will be there if you are launching it onto a different regions and all these stuffs, right? Then only you will be able to save the money for your organization, right? And that's what will make you stand out from the other developers. Okay, so with that said, let's understand about the database instance billing for Amazon RDS. So Amazon RDS instance are built based on the following components. First one is DB instance per hour. Okay, so the first one is DB instance per hour. So based on the DB instance class of the database instance, for example, db.t2.small or db.m4.large, right? So which instance am I using for initializing my database? I will be charged on that kind of instance, or I can say that size of the instance, right? Pricing is listed on per hour basis, but the bills are calculated down to the seconds, and the bills are calculated down to seconds and show times in decimal form, right? RDS use a build RDS uses is built in per second increments with a minimum of 10 minutes. For more information, you can go on to this particular link. Means even though, right? Even though if I go on to this particular link, right? If I go on to this link, if I go to this RDS pricing page, let's suppose I want to use MySQL. So, right here you can see, no, this is the snapshot one. Okay, here you can see. So for single availability zone deployment, let's suppose I want to deploy it in Hyderabad or maybe Mumbai, let's suppose. Okay, where is Mumbai? Here is Mumbai, right? So for even though it's the price is given on a hourly basis, that for db.t4g.micro for this instance, you will be charged this much, right? But it will calculate on the second basis, right? Let's suppose, so this is a per hour thing, right? So in 1 hour there are 3600 seconds, right? Now let's suppose if I used this particular service for, let's say, how can I say how much? Let's suppose I have used it for 300 seconds, right? So I will be charged this much, right? 300 divided by 3600 of 2.021. Okay, and whatever the outcome comes out to be, right? Whatever dollars, right? I will be charged this much amount for using RDS instance, which is of this size for 5 minutes, right? So this is nothing but 5 minutes, right? So this is how internally it will do the pricing calculation. Okay. Okay, so I have to go back, right, to the billing one. Now talking about the storage. So storage is per GB per month. Storage is calculated. So again, some people think that we only get charged for the storage, right? If let's suppose I'm storing my data into my database, some people think that we only get charged for storing our data, but that's not the case, right? That's not the case. For storing our data, we are charged very minimal from AWS. The major charges are of input output request. If you are having a high input output request, some charge is also for the backup storage, and data transfer again can be a good chunk of your billing if you are doing a lot of data transfer, right? So let's understand what all charges do we have to pay and what all the components of pricing are there, right? If I'm using an RDS instance. So second thing is storage. So first of all, we are getting charged for the DB instance, right? For running our DB, right? For running our database engine, right? There should be some kind of computation, that there should be some kind of instance that should be running, right? So first of all, we are charged for that, right? To keep our database engine running. Now we are getting charged for storing the data. So for storing the data, we will be charged on a per GB per month basis. Okay. So storage capacity that you have provisioned to your database instance. If you scale your provisioned storage capacity within the month, your bill will be prorated. For more information, you can go on to this particular link, right? Now, if you, let's suppose if you are storing 100 GB of data or maybe 1000 GB of data, right, on your database instance. Okay. Now, if you are doing what? If you scale your provisioned storage capacity within a month, your bill will be prorated. So what this line means is, so let's suppose if you have, uh, so currently for 15 days, uh, or let me do it here itself. Where did it go? Here, right? So let's suppose for 15 days, 15 days, okay, you stored 100 GB of data, right? And for next 15 days, you stored 50 GB of data, right? So what it will do is, for 15 days, it will charge you for 100 GB, and for next 15 days, it will only charge you for 50 GB, right? Even though it is per GB per month, right? It will charge you in this particular way. And again, there are different kind of, uh, you can say, different kind of slots that are available, or you can say zones, right? So let's suppose if you are from 0 GB, right, till 1000 GB, right? I'm not exactly telling the price. You can go and check the price, right? Let's suppose this is $1. This is $1. Then from 1001 GB, right, to 10 TB, right? Let's suppose it is from $0.5, something like this, right? So if you are storing, let's suppose 5 TB of data, right? So for, and this 1000 GB is nothing but 1 TB, right? So for first 1 TB, you will be charged $1 per GB per month, right? And for other 4 TB, you will be charged $0.5 per GB per month, right? So this is, you can say, a tier based pricing, right? So this is a tier based pricing, what we usually say, right? So this is how this pricing thing will work. Okay. Now, the third thing that we will be charged will be for our input output request, per million request, right? So we are charged on a per 1 million request basis. So the total number of storage, input output request that you have made in a billing cycle for Amazon RDS magnetic storage only. Okay. So this is only for the magnetic storage, right? So we have different kind of storages, right? We have SSD storage, then we have provisioned SSD storage, and we have magnetic storage. Now provisioned IOPS, right? So per IOPS per month. So provisioned IOPS rate, regardless of the IOPS consumed for the Amazon RDS provisioned IOPS SSD and general purpose SSD, that is of GP3 storage. Provisioned storage for EBS volumes are billed in 1 second increment with minimum 10 minutes. Okay. Now talking about the backup storage. So for, if you are doing backup again, so we will be charged on a per GB per month basis. So backup storage is the storage that is associated with the automated backup, automated database backups, and any activity and any active database snapshot that you have taken. Increasing your database retention period or taking additional database snapshots increase the backup storage consumed by your database. Per second billing does not apply to the backed up storage metered in GB per month. For more information, you can go on to this particular link. Now talking about the last thing for which we will be charged is our data transfer, and we will be charged on a per GB basis, right? So data transfer in and out of your database instance from or to the internet and other AWS regions. For example, see the blog post, this particular thing, right, for more information, right? So if you want to explore the more cost of data transfer, right, you can go on to this particular link. So exploring data transfer cost for AWS managed database. So when selecting managed, and this is, I would say, one of the most highly contribution, like it will have a very very high contribution in your billing if you are using an application where there is a lot of inwards operation and out, means a lot of read operation and write operation on your database. Okay. So here, when selecting managed database service in AWS, it's important to understand how data transfer charges are calculated, whether it's relational, key value, document, in memory, graph, time series, wide column, or ledger-based database. Okay. This blog will outline the data transfer charges for several AWS managed databases, offering uh, offering to help you choose the most cost efficient setup for your workload. So this blog illustrates pricing at the time of publication and assumes no volume discounts or applicable taxes and duties. For demonstration purpose, we list primary AWS region as as US East one, that is the North Virginia one, and the secondary region is our US West, that is the Oregon region. Always prefer to individual service pricing page for the most up to date information about the pricing. Now let's understand that data transfer between AWS and internet. So there is no charge for inbound data transfer across all services in all regions, right? So if I am getting data from my internet to my instances, to my DB instances, so this is this is basically an inbound transfer. You can say this is inbound, right? And this is outbound. Means from our instances we are transferring the data to the internet, right? For an example, let's suppose you are watching this particular video, right? You are watching this particular video, and this video is stored somewhere in a database, right? It will have some kind of database where this video is stored, right? And you are consuming this particular video. So this is a outbound traffic that from our behalf, right? Like if I say it in very clear words, so we are getting charged for this video that you are watching, right? We are getting charged for the video this video that you are watching, right? So this is what an outbound traffic is, that from my database it is going to the internet, means you are watching this video, kind of that, right? So this is what an outbound traffic is. Okay, so there is no charge for inbound data transfer across all the services in all the regions. When you transfer data from AWS resource to the internet, you are charged per service, which rates specific to the originating region. Figure 1 illustrates the data transfer charges that accurate from AWS services discussed in this blog out to the public internet in the US East 1 region, right? So you can see here 0.09 per GB, $0.09 per GB of outbound traffic or outbound, I can say data transfer, you will be charged. Okay. Now data transfer with Amazon RDS. So Amazon Relational Database Service makes it straightforward to set up, operate and scale a relational database in the cloud. Amazon RDS provides 6 database engines to choose from. We have Amazon Aurora, MySQL, MariaDB, Oracle, SQL Server and Postgres. Let's consider an application is running on Amazon EC2 that uses Amazon RDS as a data store, right? So figure 2 illustrates that where data transfer charges apply. For clarity, we have left out the connection points to the replica servers addressed in the figure 2, right? So let me just zoom out or maybe do one thing. Open image in a new tab, right? So here if you see, right? So we are in, so this is one region, right? And this is another region, right? This is US East 1 and this is US East 2, right? Now we have this is one single availability zone, right? This is one single availability zone. This is another availability zone. And here this is one VPC, this is another VPC, and this is the third VPC, right? Now, if we are doing what? If we are transferring the data from one availability zone to another availability zone, we will be charged for both inbound and outbound thing, right? We will be charged for both inbound and outbound thing, right? If we are sending data in the same availability zone, we will be not charged anything, right? From this EC2 instance, right? From this EC2 instance, let me just remove this. Okay, try to understand. From this EC2 instance, right? If I'm transferring the data from this to this, or even from this to this, right? If I'm doing the read write operation, this will be free for me, right? But if I am from this availability zone, right? Let's suppose this is US East 1A, and this is US East 1B availability zone, right? So from this 1A availability zones EC2 instance, if I am hitting or if I'm doing a read write operation on the RDS that is in US East 1B availability zone, I will be charged $0.01 per GB. Okay. Now, if I'm if I'm doing this thing to a different availability zone, I will be charged this much. And now, if I am doing it to a different region, right? If I'm doing it from a different region, I will be charged $0.02 for my outbound traffic. For my inbound, right? For my inbound, I will not be charged. So in will be free, right? Means from this EC2, if I'm writing to my Amazon RDS, I will not be charged anything. But if I'm reading from this RDS to this EC2, I will be charged $0.02 per GB if I'm reading the data from this RDS in a different region. Okay, and this is what this diagram is all about. I hope you guys have understood. Now let's read more about it. So in this setup, you will not incur charges for data transfer to or from AWS EC2 in the same region, availability zone, and VPC. Okay, and even the virtual VPC matters also, right? In the same VPC, if it is in the same VPC, same availability zone, and same region, we will not be charged anything. Now for the charges, for the data transfer charges, for what we will be charged. So if Amazon EC2 and RDS across availability zones within the same VPC, charged at Amazon EC2 and RDS is $0.01 per GB, and for the inbound thing and outbound thing both. Okay, for both inbound and outbound traffic, I will be charged, or data transfer I will be charged. Amazon EC2 and RDS across same availability zones across VPC, right? Charged at Amazon EC2 only, that is $0.01 per GB per month for both inbound and outbound. For Aurora, this charge is at Amazon EC2 and Aurora at $0.01 per GB for both inbound and outbound. Now for EC2, for Amazon EC2 and Amazon RDS across region, charged both sides for the transfer, that is $0.02 per dollar, right? And again, we need to keep in mind that we will be charged for both. This $0.02 per GB will be also be charged for RDS service and for EC2 service. Okay, here also we will be charged for $0.01 per GB for EC2 and for RDS both. Okay, and here if it is in a separate VPC, right, we will be charged only for EC2 and not for RDS. Okay, so again, like, this is the minute kind of computations that we should be aware about in order to reduce our costing, right? So this is done, like we will be charged on the both side. Now in figure 3 illustrates several features that are applicable within RDS to show where data transfer charges apply. We include multi-availability zone deployment, read replicas, and cross-region automated backups. Not all database engine supports all features. Consult the product documentation to learn more. Okay. So now let's understand about this picture. So I will have to zoom out a bit. Okay. So now in this image, right, if I talk about, so you can clearly see again we are having different regions, right? So we are having US East 1 region and we are having US West 2 region, right? In US East 1 region, we are having two VPCs, right? And we are having two availability zones, right? And two VPCs, which two VPCs are spread across, sorry, this two VPCs are spread across two availability zones, right? Now just see here that if I try to transfer the data from my RDS, right, from my RDS to another RDS in this in same VPC but different in different VPC and different availability zones, it will be free, right? It's free. In same region, right? In same region, uh, same availability zone but different VPC, it's free, right? So let me do it in this way. Let me create a table, right? If I talk about, so same region, right, same availability zone, right, and same VPC, it will be free, right? So this will again be free, right? If I talk about same region, right, same region, same availability zone, right? So currently we don't have same VPC, sorry, my bad. Okay, I can say, let's suppose I'm denoting different by red color, okay? So same region, same availability zone, but different VPC, okay, this one. So this will also be free, right? Now if I talk about, so same region, right, we are in the same region, right? Then we are having different availability zone and different VPC, right? So different availability zone and different VPC, it will be free of cost. Okay, it will be free of cost. Now for same reason, right? Same reason, okay, same availability zone, right? And different VPC, again we have seen that it is free. Now same availability zone, right? And okay, and this is a different availability zone, different VPC. Okay, this is same availability zone, right, and a different VPC, right? This is fine. And if we have a condition as different availability zone, right, different availability zone and same VPC, right, this is also free, right? Which is this one, right? Different availability zone, same VPC, which is this one. Okay, so this is also free. Now where does cost incurs, right? So if we are having, first of all, different availability zone, sorry, a different region, right? If we have different region, right, and obviously in that case we will have a different availability zone and we will have a different VPC. This particular thing is paid. And different region, different availability zone, different thing, backup is also paid. Okay, so this bucket stands for backup. This is backup, right? This is backup and this is backup. So if I'm doing the backup in the same region, if I'm doing backup in the same region, again it's free. Okay, even the data transfer is free and the backup is free. Okay, this is free, but this is paid. Okay, so this is what this particular diagram is suggesting. Now let's go back to the blog. So here you can see in this setup you will not incur data charges for data replication in a multi availability zone deployment or to the read replicas within the same region. Transfer a snapshot to Amazon S3 in the same region. In addition to the charges you will incur when you transfer data to the internet, you will incur the charges for data replication to the read replicas deployed across region. That will be $0.02 per GB for the outbound data transfer, and regional transfers from Amazon RDS snapshot copies to automated cross region backups will again be $0.02 per GB for the outbound data transfer, right? Then data transfer with Amazon DynamoDB. Okay, so you can see all the diagrams here, right? For Redshift, right? For different, so it's again telling you for different services, right? For document DB, right? Then we have tips to save data transfer cost. So let's read about this particular thing, right? So review potential data transfer charges on the both sides of the communication channel, means on your EC2 instance also and your database instance also. Remember that data transfer in to the destination is also data transfer out for a source, right? Understand this point, guys. Very important that data transfer in means if you are ingesting the data, right? It's if you are having two services, right? If you are having my EC2, right? If I am having this EC2, right? And I am having my RDS. I am having my RDS here, right? And now I am transferring the data. So this is a out traffic, right, for EC2 and in traffic for my RDS, correct? So data transfer in is for one source. If I'm getting charged for the out one, here I'm also getting charged for in one. So I am getting charged at both of the instances. Again, it depends on the region, the availability zone, right, and all those stuffs for sure, right? But again, if I have to do a multi-channel transfer or multi-channel communication or data transfer, in that particular case, I have to remember this thing that I am getting charged for the outbound for my EC2 or at my EC2 service, and for inbound I am getting charged to my RDS service, right? So this is what we have to remember. Use regional and global readers or replicas where available. You can reduce the amount of cross availability zone or cross region traffic. Consider data transfer tiered pricing when estimating workload pricing, right? Rate tiers aggregate users of data transfer out to the internet across Amazon EC2, Amazon RDS, Redshift, DynamoDB, S3, and several other services. Understand backup or snapshot requirements and how data transfer charges apply. AWS offers various purpose-built managed database offerings. Selecting the right one for you workload can optimize performance and cost. Review your application and query design. Look for ways to reduce the amount of data transfer between your application and data store. Consider designing your application or queries to use read replicas. Okay, so these are the tips for which we can save our data transfer cost. We can only do the saving on the data transfer cost on the inbound and outbound thing, right? And for the very same reason, again, I was saying that this is very important to understand about the data transfer cost between the services. Now Amazon RDS provides the following purchasing options to enable you to optimize your cost based on your needs. So first one is on-demand instances. So pay by the hour for the database instance hours that you use, right? Pricing is listed on a per hour basis. Your bill is calculated down to the seconds and all those stuffs, right? And we have reserved instances. So reserve a database instance for 1 or 3 year terms and get a significant discount compared to the on-demand DB instance pricing. With reserved instance users, you can launch, delete, start and stop multiple instances within an hour, or get reserved instance benefit for all the instances. So we have already discussed about this on-demand instances, right, and reserved instances. So for on-demand instance, right, what I can do is whenever I require a new instance, right, or whenever I require an instance, I can launch it anytime. right? At any given point of time, I can log into my console and I can launch an instance. Whereas in reserve instance, right, we have to do some kind of, I would say, a kind of agreement, right? That this is the minimum amount that I will be spending within 1 year or within 3 years of time with AWS, and not only with AWS, right? Not combined all services on AWS RDS, right? For MySQL engine, right? Let's suppose I say that I will for sure be spending $10,000 within 1 single year. In that particular case, I will get some kind of discount for my reserved instances. Okay. So this is how we will be able to save a significant amount of money. So we can get around 40 to 50% of discount, right? If we are reserving an instance for maybe a longer period of time, maybe for 3 years of time, and like that. So if you want to do the comparison and all, you can go on to this link and you can better understand about it, right? Then we have on-demand instances. So I hope we are already aware about this on-demand instance, right? So stopped DB instance and multi availability zone DB instances. And for reserved, again, purchasing, how we can purchase the reserved DB instance, right? I have already told you guys. Okay. So here you can see. Okay. So what we will have to do is, for pricing and information, we will have to go on to this RDS console. We will have to choose reserved instances, right? Then we will have to choose purchase a DB reserve instance. For product description, choose DB engine and licensing type, then DB engine class, right? And for deployment option, choose you want a single deployment or multi-zone deployment instance. Then for terms and conditions, choose the length of the time, right? That if we want for 1 year or 3 years, then offering type we will have to choose, right? And that's it. So here you can see, right? In RDS, we can go on to reserved DB instances. So here, if I check, or let me do one thing from here only. If I just click on this link, so is there, yeah, here you can see, right, reserved instances. Okay, and I will have to click on what, purchase reserved DB instance. Here, just zoom in. Okay, so engine type I can choose, let's suppose, as MySQL. Okay, so now you can see all the list of DB engines that are available, right? So let's suppose I am going ahead with RDS MySQL. Okay, so I am choosing RDS MySQL. I will choose an instance class. Let's suppose I am choosing this one. So I will get 4 CPUs. I will get 16 GB of RAM. This Elastic. What was this again? I'm forgetting this thing, right? Elastic storage it is. So EBS is, again I'm forgetting the full form. EBS AWS full form is Elastic Block Storage. Okay, so for Elastic block storage, I will be getting a bandwidth of 4.7 Gbps, you can say, and network will I will have up to 10 Gbps. So here you can see all the instances that are available, right? So let's suppose I am choosing anything random instance, right? If I want a multi availability zone deployment, I am choosing it for 3 years, right? And I will do all upfront, let's suppose, and the number of instances I should have as, let's suppose, 2, right? And I can click on next, right? So you can see here normalized units per hour, it will be this much, region is this, instance is this, right? Users charge currently is this much, 000, right? Currently I have 5 instances, and I will have to pay one time payment as $15,584 US dollars, and it will be a 3 years of thing, right? Charges your users will appear on a monthly bill, right? And now if you are not going ahead uh, with the reserve instance, for the same thing, right? For the same thing, I will be charged this much, right? So you can see the difference, right? So here it's 1,15,000 USD, and it's here it's 5,77,000 USD, right? So you can see the difference. Okay, so I can just click on this purchase instance and get the things done, but obviously I don't have that much amount in my bank account, so I will not be able to do it. Okay, cool. So this is how using you can say our console we will be able to do it. If we want to do using Amazon CLI, so we can do these things, right? Amazon RDS offerings, I will run this command, and I will run all these commands, and I can do, and using API also uh, we can basically purchase our reserve instances, right? And how we can do review the billing and all. So in our cost explorer, we will be able to view the bills and everything of our reserved DB instance. Cool. Great. Now how I can set up my AWS environment, RDS environment. So I hope I will be covering this particular thing in the next video, right? Let's cover this particular thing in the next video, because this video is already getting very long, right? Right. So I can see this video is already very long. It's more than 1 hour of video. So I'll be covering this particular thing, setting how we can set up our RDS environment in the next video. Cool. So in this video, we discussed multiple things. We discussed about regions and availability zones and local zones for our RDS instance. Then we discussed about what all supported features are present, right, for our RDS instance, and how those features will be dependent on what kind of region are we choosing, what kind of database engine are we choosing, and which version of the database engine are we choosing, right? And then we talked about the billing of our RDS instances, for what all factors, right, and for what all I can say use cases will I be charged. I will be charged for my instance, I will be charged for my storage, I will be charged for my inbound outbound traffic, right? I will be charged for my IOPS, right? So and how I can basically reduce my data transfer cost, right, which is one of the most significant thing if I talk about any application that is being used by a large number of users, right? So how I will be able to save some money for my data transfer cost, we also understood about this, right? And then we understood about how we can save our money, right? If we are aware about the fact that, okay, for let's suppose next 3 years I have to use at least this much amount of my RDS. So instead of going ahead with the spot instance, I can go ahead with the reserved instance, right? And I can save a lot of money with my reserved instance. And how I will be able to purchase reserved instance, I also showed you with the console, right? How with the help of console I can buy the reserved instance. I have shown you, and all the code, if you are using AWS CLI, or if you are using an RDS API, in that particular case, in the same documentation itself, the code was given. So if you want to try it by yourself, you can also give it a try by yourself using CLI and RDS APIs. Cool. All right, guys. So I will this is pretty much it for this particular video. I hope you guys learned something new in this video. I will see you in the next one. Till then, keep learning and keep growing. Bye-bye.